Welcome, Scorpio. Thank you for joining me for your year 2020 horoscope forecast. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant and is a detailed month-by-month analysis. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. And also, please click or tap on the alert notification bell. This year begins with the solar return. This provides the backdrop energy for the whole of the year. And the most exciting thing I can tell you as you make your way into 2020 is that your traditional ruler of Mars is in a fantastic location for you. It's in your sign. So it's going to provide you with a lot of extra drive, motivation and determination right throughout this year. Also, the moon is in a glorious, rather romantic part of your scope, the sign of Pisces, your fifth solar house, but combining with Neptune, suggesting that your imagination is going to be crucial to progress this year too. Now, if you're wanting to improve your home environment, the location of Venus in your fourth solar house of Aquarius, alongside the midpoint between the moon and the Sun in Capricorn, suggests that there could be some significant improvements, and that can give you a lot of pleasure this year. But also, as 2020 unfolds, there is a beautiful conjunction between Mercury, the planet of thought and talk, and Jupiter, the planet of good fortune. Jupiter moved into Capricorn in November 2019 and is going to be in this location for you through to the 19th of December 2020. And this is about how you think, how you express your ideas. You can be someone who's rather cautious about articulating some of your deepest thoughts. You can be quite blunt when sometimes things do need to be said to friends, but your own more private ideas can be more reserved. But this combination is forging an amazing angle to Uranus, which is going to be a key player for you this year in your sector of relationships. Because you're a fixed sign, you don't easily let go of what you know well. That sense of comfortability is something that feeds your sense of security. But Uranus is challenging that and has been a little bit in 2018 and some of 2019. But this year, Uranus is going to be in your sector of relating all year. Now, this can give you some dazzling insights. It can put you in touch with some unusual people. It can see you wanting new freedom around your closest relationship, or at other times wanting to get up close and personal. It's going to be quite varied. But embracing the energy of Uranus is going to be one of the big secrets of your success this year. And its angle to Jupiter and Mercury is really enlivening. It suggests you need a lot of mental stimulation this year, especially in close relationships. But just in front of them are the combination of Saturn and Pluto, and of course the Sun. And Saturn and Pluto have been very close together, Pluto being your modern ruler, for about 9 months, within 3 degrees. And that has created, in one sense, a push for change coming through Pluto and a resistance to change coming through Saturn. So there may have been times when you have literally felt pushed and pulled around your ideas over the last year or so. However, this year, Saturn is going to be moving, if briefly, into your sector of home, family and emotion. But it is going to come into an exact conjunction, and that's going to occur on the 12th of January. But just before then, there is another bonus ball for you, because on the 3rd of January, Mars, your ruler, relocates into the sign of Sagittarius. And this is going to almost immediately fire up your desire to enjoy the good things in life. And if you are someone who loves to enjoy some retail therapy, this could see you heading off to the sales almost straight away. But seriously, we do have by the 10th an annular lunar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, which for you is about expansion and travel and higher ideas. But this lunar eclipse is going to be facing the lineup of Saturn, Pluto, the Sun, and Mercury, which has moved forward, but also Ceres. Ceres is the asteroid of nurturing, and your ideas need to be nurtured this year. But with Saturn right alongside Ceres and also Pluto, you could have some kind of moment in the following 6 months where you go through quite a radical change in your outlook, and it may not be a particularly comfortable process. Can only be honest about this. Or you could develop a real conviction that your view of the world is the world view. So dogmatism is something to try and avoid on the back of this combination. Fortunately, Venus moves for you into a glorious location on the 14th. It goes into Venus where it is blessed. And this can see you shine socially even at this early start of the year. But I need to tell you 2 things about Venus and Mars for this year. Venus is going to spend an extended stay from the 4th of April to the 7th of August in the part of your horoscope linked to passion. Your zodiac sign has a reputation of being the most sensual member of the zodiac, and during that transit, you're likely to prove it in spades. And then in the second half of this year, your traditional ruler Mars is going to go into your 6th house. This is going to give you enormous drive and determination to restructure some part of your existence, to get fitter and stronger, or to be more motivated to get the kind of job which is really rewarding to you. So those are 2 massively big transits this year. Another is a combination between Jupiter and Pluto, but this time without Saturn being involved in the mix. Jupiter, it's true, is not at its absolute best in Capricorn, but this transit can be very lucky. So your ideas, as long as you remain flexible, don't take entrenched positions, don't become too stubborn. If you're fluid and evolve and see things in lots of different ways and you're receptive to other people's opinions, I do feel that you could enjoy some real fortune this year on the back of all these combinations. But back into January, and by the 17th, Mercury relocates into Aquarius, replacing Venus. The Sun arrives on the 21st, the new moon on the 23rd. It's a great opportunity if you are hitting the sales to buy some nice things for your home, whether it's new soft furnishings, furniture, or perhaps if you're in the southern hemisphere, some lovely items to beautify your outdoor space. Then again, you may be thinking very earnestly about where you live or how you live there and who with, which brings us through to the end of the month. Now that pattern is still the same as February unfolds, but on the 3rd, Mercury moves into a great location for you, the 5th house, the sign of Pisces, but it's not its best location for its transit. Mercury doesn't thrive in Pisces, but it is a chance for you to think about being more playful, more outward. And also on the 8th, Venus is going to be moving, so it has 1 week in the sign of Pisces before moving into the sign of Aries. If there is a relationship in your world, perhaps with an aunt, an uncle, or even an animal that you'd like to enhance or improve or change in a positive way, some kind of healing could go on at this point. But if a relationship isn't working for you, there can be a week's period when you could find yourself agonizing a little bit about exactly what you should do. The 9th sees a full moon, and it's going to see your emotions very close to the surface. In fact, in the following 2 weeks, if it is a relationship which you're uncertain about, and it could affect your overall place in life, emotionally, and in terms of where you live, it could be a disruptive time because this full moon is linking into Uranus, which of course can be very unsettling. However, on the 16th, a much better change. Mars powers into Capricorn and it's exalted here. This is going to give you real drive and determination to express your ideas. You can be very enthusiastic, but also very persuasive. For the following 6 weeks, you may even think about buying a new mode of transport or getting physically more active. Now, on the 17th, Mercury does go into a retrograde. So if there are concerns about your love life or a creative project, you could find yourself soul searching in the second half of this month. But it is true that by the 18th, Saturn and Pluto start to separate. They've been together so closely for about 11 months, by this time, and within 3 degrees. But Saturn is going to move away from Pluto, which I think we can all feel very happy about. The 19th sees the Sun move into Pisces, and although there is the retrograde to Mercury, the desire to have a good time is definitely going to be there. In fact, the Sun forges a brilliant link with Mars, and Mars also links greatly to Uranus. So if you're footloose and fancy free, the retrograde might be saying to you, look, try and get some stuff going to invigorate your social life. And Mercury sometimes in retrograde is about fixing things, not just solving glitches and misunderstandings. The 23rd is a new moon in Pisces, which links with Black Moon Lilith, the notional point of desire, which is retrograding in the sky. So what do you desire, Scorpio? Often you can have very deep and passionate desires, and I think those can come to the fore as this month comes to a close. But in week 3, Venus and Jupiter are squaring, so be careful what you wish for. As Mercury retreats and the Sun advances, the two come together in the last week, and you could have a eureka moment about some kind of creative idea. As you make your way into March, Scorpio, the Sun and Mercury are still in the glorious 5th house, which is all about your self-expression. It's also about enjoying yourself. But as soon as the 4th, Mercury retreats back into the sign of Aquarius. If there is an issue that is a bit sensitive, it may require a little more thought or consideration. In fact, with Venus moving into your opposite sign on the 5th and also meeting the rather unpredictable energies of Uranus almost straight away, this can stimulate some kind of thinking around a relationship. Now, if you're footloose and fancy free, this combination is delightful. It may be that you can encounter someone really quite unexpectedly who has quite an impact on you almost straight away. In an existing relationship, this combination is a call to action to try to enliven things, especially if things have become a little bit staid. However, with the Sun also merging with Neptune from the 5th through to the 11th, your decision making may lack a little bit of cutting edge, especially with Mercury retreating into your sector of emotions. So I don't think that this is a good time to make any binding decisions. If you're feeling a little bit unsettled in a tie, give it a little while longer, because Venus moving through your 7th solar house can be a real opportunity to find points of agreement, to find better ways to meet in the middle and to collaborate. Greater harmony can be achieved from this. And from the 9th, with Jupiter moving to align with your modern ruler Pluto through to the 4th of December, this is a fab opportunity to really grow your thinking around all sorts of strands in your situation. Now, this could be around your belief system. It could be that there's going to be some kind of transformation in a relationship with someone in your everyday world, such as a neighbour or a sibling. Or it's possible that if you've got an important message that you want to share, that you can find yourself much more proactive about trying to reach an audience in these months ahead. Now, on the 9th, there's also a full moon, but this occurs in the sign of Virgo. I think what this is essentially saying to you is that you could be in demand over the next couple of weeks, and just marshalling your time management astutely whilst keeping everyone in the loop is probably going to be the challenge. On the 10th, however, Mercury does start to go forwards, and then on the 16th returns to the sign of Pisces. So if there has been a little bit of a sticking point or some confusion, I think this can now start to clarify. On the 20th, it brings us to the vernal equinox, and the Sun returns to the first sign of its astrological journey, Aries. Now, this is also ruled by Mars, just like your zodiac sign. And this is going to be an important area of activity for you in the second half of this year. So do think very seriously as this transit unfolds about how you organise your existence, anything to do with fitness, health, diet, nutrition, work, where you feel obligated, where you want to gain satisfaction from helping others. All these things are going to be very much up for discussion. And with there being a new moon on the 24th, over the following month, a great opportunity to recast things in a successful way. But also by then, Saturn has moved forwards into Aquarius. It's going to be joined by your traditional ruler of Mars on the 31st. And this suggests that if you've been wanting to make some physical changes to your home or have thought of working from your home, this can be a really quite enriching time. Also, Mercury emerges from shadow on the 29th, so things can really start to move forwards on the creative front. I think in the first 5 days of April, as Saturn and also Mars continue to collaborate, there may be times when you could feel a bit tetchy if someone probes you about a more sensitive or personal issue. But the key here is to try not to be too defensive. As you make your way into April, Scorpio, it is true that your traditional ruler of Mars is side by side with Saturn, and that can see you thinking very carefully about deeply emotional issues, perhaps to do with a close relationship, perhaps to do with where you live. It could even be that you're going to put in place some kind of plan, a structural plan to make home improvements. This is because of the conjunction with Mars and also Saturn. But also from the 5th to the 10th, Mercury is forging a wonderful angle with Jupiter and also with Pluto. So your ability to be self-expressive is boosted by this. And there is a tremendously significant event which occurs on the 4th. Venus, the planet of love and affection, moves into Gemini, where it's going to be for 4 long months. Usually Venus takes 28 days to go through each sign. So this extension, if you like, is due to a retrograde. But Venus in the 8th house evokes some of the core attributes of your sign in terms of deep commitment, passion, transformation, an understanding of business strands, but also of sensuality. And it is also the case that later this month, the Sun, followed by Mercury, are going to move into your sector of relating and then combine with Uranus, the planet of surprises. So with that sombre note that Saturn applies to Mars at the start of this month, the enterprising energy coming from Mercury and Jupiter and Pluto, and then this very, very deep transformational energy coming from Venus, I do feel that there is the chance for something to change, and change very positively in your situation. If you're single, this can be an exciting month. Now, it is true that Mercury does move on the 11th into Aries and combines with Chiron. If there is something that's broken in your world and you have been keeping your counsel, you may well decide to say it at this stage. And part of the reason for this is the full moon, which occurs on the 8th, is in a very tender part of your scope, but links with your modern ruler of Pluto as well as Jupiter. So if there is something that's been simmering or going on deep within you that you have not been articulating, perhaps because you are so private, perhaps because you've been ruminating about all the possible outcomes, I think the following 2 weeks could be critical, and Mercury moving into Aries can, as I say, see you being a bit sharper about saying how you really feel. But on the 20th, followed by the 23rd, we have the Sun into Taurus and then the new moon in Taurus linking with Uranus, but this is your 7th house. And then Mercury moves on the 28th, also into Taurus, and itself linking with Uranus. If you're in a relationship which isn't working very well, this could be the month where you seek liberation. There's no doubt about that. Or you want a new deal. You want greater freedoms. Not to do anything necessarily unkind, but perhaps if the balance of power has become restrictive for the individual that you want to be, this would be a good time to develop new interests, and that can actually fire up the relationship in a very positive way. So Uranus can help you in that regard, but equally it could see you march towards the door marked exit if you are feeling very restricted. Then again, you could have a massive connection with someone that's totally unexpected, that really can make your heart race, but may give you some kind of option. And with Pluto slamming on the brakes on the 25th for a long retrograde, what you think about things, how you express your ideas, is going to go into a very important phase of the whole year. Now, the 5th of May is fascinating. The North Node, also known as the point of destiny, inverses, so it moves in the opposite direction to the rest of the planets. Now, so far this year it's been in Cancer, which has been about expansion and growth and travel, and it was for much of last year. But now it inverses back into Gemini, and therefore it's picking up on the energy of Venus. And this month there's going to be more Gemini energy coming in, more of this 8th house energy. So it's really about spiritual rejuvenation, and it can work at a physical level, but the point of destiny is really about the emotional pull of the heavens for you. So I think subconsciously you're getting in touch with what you really want to be bonded to or not. Also what defines you in terms of worth, in terms of your direction of travel. And on the 7th there is a full moon in your sign. If there is an unhappiness around a relationship, particularly as this full moon does bind up with Mercury, there could be a potential to jump to a conclusion, make a quick decision, or then again maybe something just does need to be said, frankly and openly. But equally, if you're wanting a relationship to develop for you, I think it could be surprising who you suddenly find some kind of rapport with, a person that you do find it very easy to get along with. There are no certainties in astrology. There are different scenarios, and it's your situation relating to those different scenarios for you. Now on the 11th, it is true to say that Saturn goes into retrograde in Aquarius, but that's just going to pull it back into the sign of Capricorn on the 1st of July. So from now until the end of June, you do have some tracking backwards in a very tender area. So if you are thinking very much about home life, emotional connections, there could be some very deep thinking going on at that time. However, on the 12th, Mercury moves into Gemini, where it really loves to be, because it rules this zodiac sign, and your quick thinking and astuteness, which are often very strong, can really shine out when it comes to marshalling your own personal long-term finances or around a business situation. The 13th sees Mars, your ruler, move into the sign of Pisces. Now, it's not at its best here, but for you, it works fabulously. This is your 5th house. This is about you expressing your sex appeal, your authenticity, your drive, your love of the good things in life. However, also on the 13th, Venus goes into a retrograde. Might there be an interplay between the two energies? Are you thinking that you want something different from your love life than has been up until more recently the consistent theme? Also, on the 14th, Jupiter goes into a retrograde, joining up with Pluto's retrograde of last month. So again, Jupiter for 4 months slowing down. If you're involved in a business to do with technology, travel, teaching, training, there could be some frustrations. Things might need to be more at a paced level. Again, like Pluto, when Jupiter slows down, inverts, it's more about looking inwards rather than outwards. It's probably not the best of times over the next 4 months to snaffle yourself a new mode of transport. But then having said that, you may think, well, actually, I'm going to do that. But just if you do, take your time and choose very carefully. Jupiter's about expansion, and in Capricorn, it's very cautious anyway. So I think this slowdown may be less pronounced than last year's slowdown in Sagittarius, which Jupiter ruled, because that really did see things going at a grindingly snails-like pace. I think it may be a little less pronounced this year. Now, on the 21st, the Sun moves to join up with Venus, the North Node, and Mercury in the sign of Gemini. There's also a new moon on the 22nd, but it actually picks up well the retreat in Saturn. So if you are wanting to do anything about a property matter, the following month is a good time to act. It's also true to say that on the 29th of May, Mercury progresses into the sign of Cancer. For you, this is good because this is about knowledge, higher education, travel, holidays, anything to do with litigation in a positive way. But Cancer is not the best transit for Mercury to make in general because of the wateriness of Cancer, which suits you, but the logic of Mercury is diminuted in some ways. So just be aware of that. Now, as you come into June, in the first 5 days, the retreating Venus meets the advancing Sun. But this can be a very sexy phase of the year. Already Venus is giving you that wonderful opportunity to connect at a deeper level. Moving the Sun into the equation as well suggests you're going to be emanating an almost mesmeric, sort of scanner-like energy which can pull people to you. Expect to get a lot of glances. There could be some smouldering glances in there too, and also some hot action if that's what you want. But on the 5th, there is an annular lunar eclipse, and this is going to square up with Mars. So this occurs in Sagittarius. For you, this is about your resources. And Mars is in a part of your horoscope that's to do with risk-taking. So it's basically saying to you over the next couple of weeks, be a bit careful about how you splash out, especially if you're more impulsive. The first 3 weeks of this month does actually see the Sun and Mars clashing. So it's just basically when it comes to your instincts, the Sun, 8th house, desire, also impulse, all 8th house, passion, whereas Mars in the 5th house, gambling, chancing it, being bold. Just be careful what you go for this month, particularly in your sex life. You could find yourself having a right romp, but whether it will be good for you in the longer term, only you could say. But just be aware that intimacy has to be at some level balanced by a sense of spirituality for it to really be meaningful, in my humble opinion. So if there is something that really tempts you, then just be aware of the downside of that. Now, from the 9th through to the 17th, this is reinforced by the fact that Mars combines with Neptune. When these two get together, our desire nature can really ramp up, but what we go for can be sometimes really bad for us. People who tend to have a propensity to steal, seriously, have Mars-Neptune challenging aspects because Neptune distorts reality. Mars is about instant gratification. In the 5th house, you want all your pleasures met straight away. So again, it's just reinforcing, be careful what you wish for. On the 18th, however, Mercury goes into retrograde in Cancer, which just ain't helpful. So if you are travelling anywhere in the second half of this month, you do need to really double down on your plans. And if possible, have some kind of secondary backup, just in case things do go awry. But the Sun's move on the 21st, followed by the solar eclipse, which is an annular solar eclipse in Cancer, also on the same day, that is more positive but it does forge a quincunx with Saturn. So Saturn's in the part of your scope to do with emotion, and the sun and the eclipse is in a much more exploratory, adventurous part of your situation. So for the next 6 months, you can go for it and you can, be much more abandoned in your approach to life. But if you do try to break out of something, do consider the emotional dimension. The 25th sees Venus end its retrograde. I think we can all celebrate that. And the 28th, Mars move into Aries. Now, it's going to be there through to the 6th of January next year. This is a critical change. Mars is your ruler. The 6th house is about how you order your life, but it's also where you make sacrifices and where you try to help other people. It's also where you see the small picture. So the small picture can be very good if we're involved in work where we need to be very precise, meticulous. For example, surgeons often have Mars in the 6th house because they need to really focus exactingly in the processes that they're carrying out. But if you're looking at your life and reacting to the impulsive energies of Mars in the 6th house, but not considering the big picture, so not just backing out in your lens and getting a wider perspective, it could create some problems. But generally over the next 6 months, you'll be able to work terrifically hard. You'll be very, very industrious. You can be very structured. And you can also, at the same time, start things up. Something you don't always find easy because of your fixed nature, which suggests that you stick at things for the long term. But when changes do happen in your life, they tend to do so in quite profound ways. But generally, there are long, sustained periods of stability. So I think Mars moving into this area could see you prodding around and thinking about where you can change things, and work, health, fitness, diet, nutrition, as I said before, can be the areas that we really feel motivated to make some alterations around. Now, as we come into July, I've got to be frank, there could be some challenges this month, not just for you, but for all of us. This is because a series of opposition as the Sun goes through the sign of Cancer, firstly with Jupiter, then it's going to be connecting again with Pluto, and finally Saturn. If all this has a ring of familiarity, it's because this set of influences was so potent during last year, 2019. What it means for you is that the ideas that you've been developing and the passion that's been linked to those ideas is really going to come sharply into focus on the first day of July when Saturn rewinds back into Capricorn. That means that you become a little more potentially feisty about what you believe in, or a bit more serious, or even a bit more exacting about punching across your point of view. With Jupiter and Pluto also in retrograde, therefore you're in a more inward phase, so that the potential to be more defensive is increased. Also on the 5th, there's an annular lunar eclipse in Capricorn, again emphasizing that third solar house, which was so powerful at the start of this year. So your idea sector in the here and now is challenged by the higher principles of ideas. So if you have more impulsive thoughts, you just say how you feel quickly, you may feel or may find that you're challenged by someone this month, as there are the succession of these oppositions. However, the 11th to the 16th, when the Sun goes opposite Jupiter, can actually have some positive dimensions. It could make you very optimistic about an idea or project that you're developing. And the trick here is to just definitely not promise more than you can realistically deliver. The great news on the 12th, however, in terms of expansion, is that Mercury starts to go forwards. The new moon on the 20th, however, does get absolutely battered by Saturn because it's later on into Cancer, and Saturn is just reversed back into Capricorn. So what we get here for 1 month is rather than an opportunity, there's a likelihood that there can be much fiercer discussions and potentially disagreements if people see things in a more polarized way. So the trick to overcome this is to try to keep a sense of balance and perspective and see both sides of any given situation. Now, the 22nd sees the Sun return to its home zone of Leo. This is fabulous for you because over the following 4 weeks, you get a fantastic opportunity to showcase your talent. You can raise your profile, you can be more goal-orientated, your ambitions come into focus, and people can salute what you have to offer. Also on the 26th, Mercury comes out of its shadow, which is very positive. And there's also a very spiritual link this month between Jupiter and Neptune, which is worth talking about. Neptune is in the part of your horoscope to do with creativity, Jupiter ideas, alongside Pluto. So if you listen to the more sensitive strands, the more imaginative ideas that are coming through for you, it can be a counterpoint to just the more physical structures that come from Capricornian energy, certainly in its opposition to those softer Cancerian vibes this month. As we make our way into August, so as soon as the 3rd, the Sun is challenged by the Moon in the sign of Aquarius. But the two are dissected in a T-square by Uranus in your sector of relationships. For the next 2 weeks, if a work-life balance issue is not quite well attuned, there could be arguments, particularly if you've got a very different view of it from someone else you're closely involved with. But if you are wanting to make waves in the wider world and achieve greater success, don't take for granted the support structures or the emotional simpatico that you're getting from the people around you, which gives you the platform to go and shine. On the 5th, Mercury also moves into Leo. Now, Mercury here is much brighter than it was through its transit of Cancer. And for you, it could point towards some training, an interview, a presentation, and you can wow people by the construct of your ideas, collaborating with an ability to present them clearly and also persuasively. But for the first 10 days of this month, Mars and Jupiter are in a square, and remember Mars is in a very practical zone and can give you an impatience to get on with it. But it can create some stress if you're trying too hard. So don't know your limits and just throttle back a little bit. On the 8th, Venus moves into Cancer. Lovely for you. If this end of this 4-month transit through Gemini has taught you anything, it's the value of your close alliances. But moving into your 9th house can see you a bit more philosophical about things and less governed by lust, quite frankly, whether it's for loot or intimacy. Now, the 11th to the 21st also sees a fabulous angle between the Sun and Mars. Now, the Sun's high in the sky, Mars is in a very practical area, which is asking you to look at the details. So the Sun can give it large, you can strut your stuff, but you can also deliver. So this is brilliant. It's very motivational. It's brilliant if you're a manager or you want to make a big impression. Indeed, the new moon, which occurs on the 19th, is also going to be embracing the energy of Mars. So that's lovely. Mars is about action, the moon is about receptiveness, and the two are balanced with the support of the Sun. You've got everything to go for if you're really minded to make a big impression on a larger stage. On the 20th, however, and the 23rd, we have two changes. Mercury moves into its home zone of Virgo. Obviously, it also governs Gemini. And on the 23rd, there's catch up with the Sun. For you, this is great because this is about playland, it's about friendship, it's about sociability. What a great way to end this month. Or is it? Because Mars is continuing its rather robust interaction with other planets by being in conflict with Saturn in the second half of the month. So though things can get lighter and become more future orientated, it's possible with Mars in your 6th house, clashing with Saturn back in your 3rd house. The nerves and the stress could be there a little bit if you've been doing a lot. So the key is finding some balance. So perhaps the move of the Sun and Mercury is just a reminder that fun is so important. And in fact, in the last week of this month, Mercury forges a beautiful angle with Jupiter and also with Pluto. So it's time to be more playful for sure. Okay, it's going to be opposite Neptune, which can create some distortion for sure, but give yourself permission to have some fun. With Venus in opposition with Pluto as the month comes to a close, there could be a fated conversation. You may meet someone, and it could be very, very intense. This meet could be related to a personal attraction. It could be related to work. If it is related to work, travel is going to be part of the equation. On the 2nd of September, the full moon occurs in the sign of Pisces. Now, Pisces energy, of course, is dreamy, but for you it's very creative, it's outgoing, it's friendly, it's about your self-expression. And actually, this full moon does feed off the energy of Uranus very positively. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier in this forecast, there are going to be times when you need to marshal your time, energy and resources. This is another one of those times. But I think there could be some sudden demands for you to join in with things that actually can prove to be very gratifying. People might say, hey, someone's dropped out, do you want to come along? Could be a group outing, could be a date if you're single. Something pleasant can occur. On the 6th, Venus moves into a glorious location for Venus, a transit through the sign of Leo, where it really takes on a magnificence. Venus here is grand, it's alluring, it's proud, but it's also brilliant for your career. Your personality power could have a seriously positive impact on someone influential that you come into contact with in the following 28 days. Or it's possible romantically, someone can draw your gaze who's older or younger than you, or who you meet through work. With Mercury moving on the same day, however, into a rather sheltered location, you may need to keep pushing yourself to embrace this more outward going energy, because another part of you could develop a bit more of a worrisome agenda and just also almost be a little bit inward just when you're given a chance to really go for it. So just bear that in mind. It is true that Mars goes retrograde on the 9th. So if you are making those fundamental changes to the structure of your world, some things may not go exactly to plan. And as was shown last month with Mars clashing with Saturn and also Jupiter, it can't all be plain sailing. It never is in astrology. On the 13th, however, this is something we can all hugely celebrate, that Jupiter starts to go forwards after that slowdown of 4 months. So if you are wanting to get your message out there, this will help. But with Mercury sheltered, you may have to wait until Mercury moves into your sign to really get into the groove. Now the 16th sees a new moon in Virgo. Now that's great for you because it's asking you to be future orientated. So if you have been feeling a bit more inward with Mercury in Libra, it is going to then clash with Pluto from the 19th to the 26th, which could see some anxieties really crystallise, but it may also see something come into the open. The Sun moves on the 23rd into Libra, and really you've entered that time of the year when traditionally you go into a kind of shutdown period. You really think carefully about things. You review the previous 12 months. But Mercury moves into your sign on the 27th. And Mercury in Scorpio is terrific because it has real penetrative powers. It doesn't matter what people are saying to you, you'll be able to work out what they really mean. And you're usually very, very shrewd. It's also the case that as the 29th dawns, so Saturn ends its retrograde in Capricorn. This is really significant. It's gone through 3 retrogrades in Capricorn over the last 2.25 years. It's now in the next quarter going to move towards its exit point for a longer stretch of time in the sign of Aquarius, which begins on the 17th of December this year. But for now, the restriction you've been feeling about finding your voice, saying how you feel, even feeling less negative about your own ideas, It's going to get easier from here on in. As you come into October, so there's a very important event. There is a full moon on the very first day. But also as you leave October, there is a full moon. So it's blue moon land this month. We haven't had this since March 2018. Now, initially, it's going to be about finding the balance between the more practical side of your existence and the more sensitive, ethereal, and kind of emotional, the less tangible side, which is being influenced presently by the sun's location in Libra. If you're someone who's very much a factual type of person, you have to see everything and prove it, this can be a more challenging couple of weeks at the start of this month, especially as for the first 3 weeks, your two rulers are in mortal combat. I say mortal combat because Mars and Pluto are very, very powerful planets. Mars is about action, but it's also about getting things done. It's impatient. Pluto is about change, but it's about power in a more literal way. It's not about necessarily using tanks to attack the opposition. It's about who wins the end game. So it's not the assets, it's more about what the bigger picture is. So Pluto is very, very powerful indeed. So you could find yourself feeling very frustrated if things aren't going to plan at the start of this month. And the best way to challenge this is really to continue to keep a perspective. And on the 3rd, Venus moves into Virgo, which is terrific for you. This is a very playful location. It's also a great reminder to keep in mind the things you share with people, not just the things that make you different. And also from the 8th through to the 21st, with the Sun in Libra clashing in turn with Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn, a bit like that Cancer energy did. And the reason for this is they're angular. So Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn are all angular or cardinal signs. And because there's a big pack of energy in Capricorn, then as we go through the transits in the other angular signs, they're clashing with those big posse of planets in Capricorn. So for you, this could bring some uncomfortable truths to the surface. Perhaps someone is going to find their voice with you. One of the things I find with Scorpio people, and remember I have largely a Scorpio ascendant, is we can be quite direct in our assessment of other people, but intensely private about the things that affect us individually. Well, someone could do a bit of a Scorpio on you this month. That's probably the best way to put it. However, on the 16th, there is a new moon. New moons are usually a time to re-energize. This is asking you to re-energize your view of yourself as others see you, not as you thought you were. So there could be some revelations coming your way. Some of them may be more challenging. It is true to say that Jupiter does continue that beautiful angle along with Pluto with Neptune. So there is some potential for lightning. So it's basically saying if there is conflict, try to understand why it's happening. However, from the 18th to the 24th, Venus actually tunes into Pluto brilliantly. And you may get a reminder of just how important one person is to you. And it could be a huge moment. It could be a moment of complete repair if there has been tensions, or it could be meeting someone new and finding a real sense of purpose and union together. The 23rd is one of the most significant days of the whole year for you, Scorpio, because this year the sun returns to your sign on that day. But it is true to say that on the 28th, Mercury, continuing to backward pedal in your sign, returns to Libra, which suggests those anxieties may come up again. So the sun's giving you permission to go for it, but you could still in the back of your mind be worrying over something. The 31st, however, sees a full moon in your opposite sign of Taurus. So this is bringing into focus relationships. Now, it may be how you see relationships, or it may be how someone sees you. It just depends. But for the following 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of November, it's all going to be about your relationships, the value of them, understanding what others bring to your world, also what you expect, and also what you're prepared to give, but also firming up your boundaries in terms of more competitive situations. Now, as we come into November, there is something to really mark down in your diary, and that is on the 11th, Mercury returns to your sign. It's actually going to come out of shadow on the 19th, so where the retrograde first began. So at that point, really around the middle of this month, I think you're going to start to be much clearer about where things are heading. In generally, the sun in your sign, however, gives you a lot of power potential. But just as you start this month, because Mercury is retrograde, although it goes direct on the 3rd, and Venus is locked into Libra too, it may feel that you're kind of fighting with one arm tied behind your back. But stay patient, because your ruler goes forwards on the 14th, so some of your key plans can start to be revitalised. And the 15th sees a glorious new moon in your sign, one which is a real affirmation of what you're trying to do at a both physical, practical, but also emotional level. On the 22nd, the sun moves into Sagittarius. For you, this is about resources. But Venus moves into your sign. This is lovely. And you're going to get quite a lot of extra attention in the run-up to Christmas. Enjoy every moment. Through to the 15th of December, I think you're going to be a very popular person. On the 29th, Neptune starts to go forwards. Any ideas or hopes you've got can become a little less fuzzy and confused, if they have been. On the 30th, there is another annular eclipse. This one's in Gemini. Remember Gemini from earlier this year, the 8th house for you. So it's about shared assets and finance. And obviously this can be an expensive time of the year, so this may be something you're actively considering. Which brings us into December and the last month of the year. On the 2nd, Mercury moves into Sagittarius. It's not at its best here, it's in detriment, but I think for you, it's asking you to just be crystal clear in your thinking about expenditure. However, on the 14th, we have a sensational event, a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which forges an amazing link to Mars, your ruler, in Aries. The last 2 weeks of this year, therefore, can see you really flying with motivation, but most importantly, the first 5.5 months of 2021. You can really burst into that year with a lot more physical vitality and a desire to improve your financial lot. That's going to be helped hugely on the 16th of this month when Venus moves into Sagittarius and some kind of unexpected windfall can come to you just in the run up to Christmas. Also, Saturn moves into Aquarius, as I flagged earlier, on the 17th, but crucially, Jupiter on the 20th. Jupiter in your 4th house suggests if you're wanting to improve where you live, add to the family, get together in some kind of celebration throughout 2021, it's going to be very helpful at the end of this year. So there could be some kind of celebration to be had at the end of this year, or Saturn could be making you think very carefully about your emotional life. With the Sun and Mercury moving on the 21st into Capricorn, however, you're back into those ideas that started this magnificent year for you. I do hope that your ideas do really flourish in 2020. We have a full moon at the end of the year, which could see someone see things in stark contrast to you. But part of modern life does seem to be an almost distinct polarisation between virtually everyone's views. I think one of the best ways to balance the things we feel passionate about is try to understand where people are coming from, and that could be a big help to you throughout this year. If you'd like to know what 2020 would hold for you as an individual, if you'll order your 12-month forecast in 2019, I'll give you the rest of 2019 free. If you order in 2020, it's 12 months from the time of the order. It's been a real pleasure being with you. If you make that order, I will give you 30% off too, but for now, good luck and goodbye.